visited a school over there that almost in spite of the Department of Education, both state and federal, they're doing some tremendously innovative things. Every student in that, I think from 6th grade on up, all have laptops. Everything is online. Their whole system. They're doing tremendous things and tying in with schools all over the country, doing joint efforts and communicating back and forth.
I can't remember, did you vote for No Child Left Behind?
Yes.
That's,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
That
Which I regret. Yeah. No, I mean,
what do you want Washington to do to say to America's schools, we've got to raise the bar academically? Is there something Washington should be doing along those lines, or should it just wash its hands and leave it to states and local school districts?
I think maybe everybody in Congress should go visit Van Meter. And see, but to have that be a model of understanding, those kids are totally involved in learning.
But what should the federal role be to make sure that
if there's to have incentives in place to take away the roadblocks, basically, for them to be able to do that.
I don't think they had any roadblocks.
Yes, you talk to the people. Go to LeGrand.
I have talked to the superintendent there. I don't recall him saying
and
there
they
were roadblocks that kept us from
state
technology.
I asked what is the biggest impediment to the Iowa Department of Education for them to be innovative. I mean, it's amazing.
I'm thinking about the high percentage of minority kids who still aren't performing who aren't graduating at an acceptable rate, who aren't performing on tests, on standardized tests at an acceptable rate. I mean, in some big numbers. What does the federal government say about that? What is the federal government's role to make sure that not just the highest performers perform at the highest possible level, but that
that's one problem, that we're spending so much resources trying to teach English as a second language, and that we're not, the tag kids aren't getting the ones deprived actually as far as what resources that go to their curriculum. But I think you go up to Storm Lake, I think is a great model where they put in on a local basis. And that's, to me, the problem is we have almost too much federal intervention in the local school districts, where they've got programs up there where they take kids that are 2 or 3 years old, teach them English before they ever get into the system.
Well, let me ask it differently. If in the global world now, we're competing differently as a country than we've ever competed before, for jobs, for brain power, for everything. Is there a national interest in making sure that the vast majority of American kids, regardless of where they live or what school district they're in, perform at a certain level so they can compete globally? And what's the federal role in making sure that a local school district achieves at that level?
I don't know if the federal government can guarantee it, but that was the whole idea behind No Child Left Behind. And when you look at it's primarily focused on large urban school districts. And if you go to Washington, D.C., and I visited schools there, the expectation of kids going into kindergarten is that only 40% of them would ever graduate, and that maybe half of them would be able to fill out a job application. I mean, and that's okay in the system. The expectation, for one part, we have no expectations for those kids. We're throwing away generations.
So should the federal government
That was the whole idea, the focus behind it. I don't think it's been successful because there's been so much resistance as far as the bureaucracy in the systems that it's all about preserving their jobs and not worrying about educating kids.
So should the federal government try to retain that goal, but change
I think it should
the process?
be a national goal. I'm not sure the federal government is always the best. You talk to these people, and the ones who are really innovative, and the first thing they'll say is, and I straight out ask them questions of the administrators, what's the biggest problem you have? And it's basically the way the system is today, they don't like to have innovation. I mean, what they're doing is not, it doesn't fit the norm, which is the cookie cutter approach. You've got to have, and and you look at those kids, and they are so far beyond what I ever dreamt about it. That, of course, we didn't know what a computer was back then, hardly, but they are so advanced. They have their world is so much broader because of the way that they're doing it with the innovations they have in place, and that's. I think we've got to stop discouraging that and encourage those types of activities. And whether I don't know if oftentimes with the rules and regulations by the time they finally get written down are not going to work at the local level.
Congressman, we need to cover one other issue before I know you're going to have to leave shortly. Do you support the war in Afghanistan?
As long as the generals on the ground think that there is a pathway to be successful, yes. And basically I supported the president as far as I wish he had moved more quickly as far as making a decision, as far as supporting the requests of the generals in the field. But yes, I was very sensitive to it with 3,000 Iowa Guards people going over there, and they're going to be in a very difficult area. I've visited Afghanistan twice myself, and have seen. I mean, it's going to be tough. I don't know. I think it's going to be very hard to have a quote military victory in Afghanistan. I think it's more. It is a long-term situation. You have an entirely different situation than what you did in Iraq. Iraq, while they had a dictator, the citizens there understood federal government. As bad as it was, they understood what a strong federal government was. And they're very educated in comparison to Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, I mean, the female population has virtually no literacy. The male population is maybe, 30-40%, something like that. And it's tribal, it's local. And until you change the security situation for them locally, I don't think you're going to see. It's going to be very difficult to not have a major influence with Taliban. You talk about the agricultural areas, or people talk about agricultural areas where they're growing poppies. It's not that the farmer doesn't make any more money raising poppies than he would wheat. But when somebody comes and raps on your door in the middle of the night from the Taliban and says that if you don't raise poppy, your family will be dead next year, that's a real incentive to raise poppies. And it has nothing, it's not an economic issue, it's a I'm going to survive issue.
Then is the war the right approach if it's not a military solution?
I think our goal has got to be security. And just like I said, until you have security in those local areas, I don't think you're going to have an ability for us to have they don't understand a strong federal government, even provincial strong government. But they never will, and it will never push out the Taliban in their communities. The tribal lords will not join forces for peace and against the Taliban if in fact they don't feel they're secure. So that really is, to me, is where our goal has to be, as on the ground security. And we've got to ramp up, obviously, the Afghan military and security forces so that they can in fact do it themselves. That's going to be the key to success.
Is there a last question? Congressman Latham, thanks very much for spending the time with us today.
Appreciate it.